Okay, so Bright Pattern is a 100% cloud-based solution. So it was built as a cloud solution from day one. It was built for the enterprise. It was built for true omni-channel. So really our differentiator is omni-channel. That being said, we do have a strong dialer as well. We've got several clients, sorry, I'm getting some feedback here.
I'm sorry, it's probably me typing.
Okay. So it was built as an enterprise grade solution, and part of this is we have a built-in soft phone. It's all HTML5, so it's using modern web technologies. WebRTC, HTML5, all the things that you'd expect. Now, I did have a question. So, can you maybe give me just a 30,000-foot view of your environment as it relates to leads? Like, what systems are you using? How are you loading leads into your dialer today? If you could just maybe walk me through that, maybe take 30 seconds or so, just talk about that so I have a little bit of context as to what you're doing.
Our leads come into our own reporting server. We scrub them out there, and then we post them into the dialer.
Okay, and is that using I'm assuming it's just an automated process, right?
Yep, just a basic API, real-time leads that come in.
Okay. All right, cool. Yeah, so we have the same type of functionality, and so you can see the screen here, right? Okay.
Yeah.
So when the agent logs in, I'll just take a step back here real quick. But most agents are using the soft phone. You don't have to. You could use extensions, or you can set up cell phones or landlines, things like that. But the soft phone is the most common option because it's self-provisioning. It's lightweight. And then when an agent logs in, they'll get something like this, where it's a home screen, and they can track their performance versus the rest of the team, customer satisfaction metrics, daily updates, those types of things. So the agent has some insight into that. So I'm just going to kind of show you what this looks like from a high level. So the supervisor can start and stop outbound campaigns. They'll also have this outbound campaign operator dashboard, so they'll be able to really start these on the fly. You can also customize what you're looking at. So maybe you want to add or hide different metrics here. Or you maybe just specific to the campaign, tracking list and team performance, things like that. So this is all going to appear on your campaign operator dashboard. And then the supervisor can also start and stop this campaign. So if we just start this up, now we also, by the way, accommodate the most common dialing types, preview, predictive, progressive, things like that. In this case, we've set it up as preview, but I'll show you how to change it. It's pretty easy.
I do have a question regarding your predictive.
Yes.
All right. So as mentioned, one of the things that we are looking for in the dialer is capacity, right? So right now, and it's not consistent, right? It's not all the time, but we have reached the point of sometimes where we're hitting 30 to 35 dials per agent in a predictive dialer. This dialer can withstand those dialing metrics?
Yes, it can. So basically with that, like when we set up your tenant, we'll have to take that into consideration when we do that, but you can change the dialing ratio. The dialer is actually based on capacity. So the way that works is, occupancy. So basically what that means is the less that your agents are occupied, the more aggressive the dialer then becomes. So, it can scale up and scale down automatically based on an algorithm.
Right, which is what we're looking for it to do. I just want to make sure that, so one of the issues that we have with our current dialer is when we added extra agents in, right, and it was trying to get us to those numbers to where our average wait time for the agent was lower than where we were sitting at, because then our performance was going in the opposite direction. We maxed their servers out. So basically it was causing lag times and issues, and they are a cloud-based, server. I just want to make sure that, as we add in agents there and we're trying to get to that lowest that lowest number, that, you don't feel that there's going to be any issues as far as you're concerned with the dialer hitting some kind of max level. Like is there a cap that you guys have that would say, hey, the most we'd be able to get is X amount of dials per agent at one given time?
Well, I mean, we do have a cap for most people. Like I said, it's about 7 to 1, but that's just for standard. Like I said, because you're talking about 35, we just have to take that in consideration when we build your tenant. But just to put it in perspective for you, Verizon used this dialer for collections purposes, and they told us the feedback was that this was the best dialer they had ever used for their collections campaign. So I'm not really concerned about the actual performance of the dialer. It's just more that we have to know what you're going to be dialing ahead of time when we build your tenant, which isn't a big deal. It's part of the onboarding. So
okay, good.
So again, this is preview, but we do predictive. Predictive is basically you get a connection, you get a live answer, you send it to an agent. This is what it would look like when it gets connected. So you can customize what's here. So you could present a URL. You could have multiple tabs here. You can also pre-fill some of the fields here, and then this is a custom script that we built. So this is all data that comes from a list. It's all going to be the same because I've uploaded the same data for this list. But you can pre-fill data. You can have multiple pages. You can write out a script here as well. So an agent would be looking at this when they're filling out the form. And then in the case of preview, we do have SMS capability, of course, but I'm just going to call here, and we'll just hello. So we're connected now. We do have the ability to do messaging. So an agent can, if it's a disclaimer or something like that, an agent can press this. They record it once, they press the button, it plays on the call, start and stop, holds. All of the things you expect in typical transfer. Do you guys ever transfer calls out, or are you just collecting data and then exporting results?
No, we do a lot of transferring out. So basically what we do is we partner with other insurance companies, and we validate the lead's eligibility, and then we would transfer to those partners. Okay,
cool. Yeah, so you can do the same thing here. Basically, the way you do it is you've got the person that we're talking to. We decide, all right, we need to transfer it. You can set up either queues to transfer to individual people or individual phone numbers that you can transfer to, and then just to transfer, you would just click on the number. In this case, this is just a queue, but you could actually populate a number in there, and then you just click this button to. You could do either warm or cold transfer. Do you guys usually do a warm handoff then?
Yeah, always warm.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, you would just click this. It'll dial. We connect, and then you can just jump off the call. You decide that. So it's pretty easy to operate that.
About that, one of the biggest things that we need in our reporting is the ability to see the duration of the call after our agent has left that conference.
Yep. Okay.
So that's something that you guys can handle. So if I go ahead and connect to my partner, I hand over the customer to their sales agent, and then I drop off the line, and that call lasts for, I don't know, another 40 minutes.
Yeah.
I'd be able to see that in your system?
Yeah, you would. This is kind of what it might look like. So we actually track every single step. Now, this is actually an inbound call, but just to give you an idea, we actually track every single leg of the call. So in this case, we found an agent, then we connected the agent for 244, but if we transferred, it might be another duration. And I can actually, what we can do is probably just, let's see.
So that's another question. So let's say, your system obviously has the data that we need. Would we be able to customize a report to show how we would need it to show? Is that something you guys offer?
Yes.
Okay.
We have custom reporting.
All right, cool. As long as you guys have that data in there, we can figure out the customization of how we want it to look.
We also do, we allow custom data to be written to our database for unified reporting, which is a cool feature, I think. So, so I'm going to end this call here. So I transferred the call. So that I'll show you what that looks like in a few minutes here, because I'll show you what it looks like on the transfer. But basically, it breaks down every leg. So Down below here, it'll actually show you the duration, and,
Wow.
it's going to take a few minutes to process this, and I can show you what it looks like. But essentially, we'll track every leg and the duration of the call, so you'll be able to actually see a really nice breakdown of, who talked to him, what phone number was it, how long did they speak.
That show video button, is that to show what the agent was doing the whole time on the call?
Yeah, we do have a screen recording feature. It's an additional cost per agent, but it's a built-in feature. It's not a third party. It's actually a built-in native screen recording feature as part of that soft phone package, the lightweight one. So, and it's the whole desktop, not just the browser.
Oh, cool.
So we'll look at that. But yeah, to answer your question, yeah, we do break it down, and we can track every leg.
Great. Is that, I'm sorry, that other where you were just at that showed the call?
Yeah.
I was looking at the video little button.
One second, let me just go back a little bit here. Yeah, so let's just look at this one here.
So is that like a scorecard there, like a quality scorecard? Is that?
It is, yeah. So yeah, well, these 10 points are customizable. We're actually going to be rolling out a QM Pro module, which is basically going to have unlimited scorecards and agent feedback. It's really comparable to any QM product out there. It'll be additional fee, but like I said, it'll be comparable to any product out there. This is the basic out of the box. So out of the box, QM is call recording, screen monitoring. Again, screen monitoring, screen recording are additional fee, but scorecard, and then obviously the reporting that goes along with that too.
Yeah.
So you can actually change these labels here, and also a supervisor can real-time grade that. They can monitor, coach, and barge into all the different channels technically, but for voice particularly, they can do that. So they monitor, coach, barge in, and then they can grade real-time as well. I think I'm off the call, so I won't be able to monitor it. So, but yeah, that's correct. So yeah, and then they just basically that's really it from the agent perspective. Now, the supervisor can review their teams. They can see the team performance. They can customize what metrics they're looking at. You can move these, resize them if you'd like. You've got several different metrics. You can also track different agent metrics down below here. So we do sentiment analysis through IBM Watson in this demo. And then we can monitor, coach, and barge in. Again, we're a true omni-channel platform. I'm not talking about the omni-channel today, but we have the ability to monitor, coach, barge in on all the channels, not just voice. Review email queues and things like that too. And then we also have, as part of it, is a wallboard. So we're able to throw this up onto a TV screen somewhere, and you'd be able to track your performance of your different campaigns, and they could be tracked different ways. So you may have it as a visual, or you may have it as just a list. You may track your agent states. You can track your agent states like this as well. But the important thing here is that you can come in here and edit these. You can resize the widgets, and you can also decide what exactly you want to show. And if you wanted to add additional metrics, there's several. We've got several outbound metrics here. So, everything that you'd expect in, outbound abandons, interactions handled, attempts, penetration rates, those types of things can all be shown here.
And regarding the states, those are busy nearby, but does your system allow for me to identify which states an agent is allowed to take calls for?
I'm not sure I understand.
So we have licensed sales agents that are only licensed in X amount of states, let's say 10 of them. I don't want them to receive calls from any other state except for those 10 calls.
Yes. So the way that we would do that is based on skill. So they'd have to be, I can show you what that looks like too. Again, these are great questions. I usually don't jump around this much, but I think it's really important to talk about this stuff because you're actually, living and breathing this. So on the skills, the way that it would work, so here's licensed, see that?
Mm-hmm.
You can just basically assign a skill from 0 to 100. So if, Gene's licensed in Arizona, they'd be 100. If they're not licensed in California, they'd be a 0 or blank.
Okay.
So that way you make sure that they're only getting calls for the state that they're licensed in, or leads for the state that they're licensed in. So.
Okay. All right, great.
Yeah. So. So yeah, I think. Do you have any questions on the agents or supervisors so far? I want to show you some more things on the admin side, of course, but just wanted to see if that all makes sense, or maybe if we're missing.
The only question I have for the supervisor piece, just as far as all agents, like a real-time perspective.
Yeah, that's what this is. The dashboard is
Okay.
real time, and then the swell board is real time as well. So.
Got it. Yeah. All right, cool. Yeah, then I got nothing.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to show you a couple of other things that are specific to outbound dialer. So on the admin side here, a couple of things. So you can build out your users. So every user will have a role or a set of roles. So you can choose one or multiple here. And then every user is assigned to a team with a set of supervisors. So here's the list of members. Here's the supervisors. And then every role is going to have its own set of privileges. So again, we're omni-channel. So we have, handle email, handle chat, SMS, etc. But you may enable or disable specific privileges within the role. And then this also goes for supervision and things like that. So what do they have access to and things like that. And then the skills, of course, we talked about. So being able to skill specific license states, or maybe use skill specific, what we call services, which are also known as queues. So they may take specific queue calls or service calls. And then on the service, this is where you actually set up your outbound rules. So this one's outbound campaign. We can do transcription too. So if you want to transcribe your calls and record calls, we have a native integration with some NLU engines like Watson. So we can transcribe the call if you want. We don't charge for that, but your NLU provider would. And then we also have on the outbound side, so there's a couple of cool things here. So you can automate your campaigns, of course. You can choose what type of dialing you want to do. So whether it's preview, predictive, progressive, or automatic, like voice broadcast, you can set those up, start and stop. And then on your calling hours, we have safe calling hours. So that's dialing based on the area code and the zip code. Do you guys do that today, or is it dialed purely on area code?
It is dialed purely on state.
On state. Okay. So in that case, we can do state calling hours as well. So you can define these. You can come in here and define how you want to dial per state. And then so, you can actually customize these to some degree. So Michigan, dial 9 to 9, closed every other time. And then on the lists, so this is where you choose your dialing ratio. This is just 1-to-1 because I'm doing a demo, but you can choose what your dialing ratio is. That'll take effect immediately. You can also choose filters that you want to dial on. So maybe you want to include or exclude certain things or certain records. You could decide what filters you want to focus on dialing on as it relates to that specific list. So that's kind of cool. We also have a quota feature. I don't know if you guys would use this, but we do have the ability to set up quotas. So, it could be based on your field value. In this case, it could be gender. So, I need 10 males, 5 females, or we want to do 20 from each and apply it to everything. Or you can do it based on 2 field values. So gender maybe and state, for example, and it'll concatenate that for us. So kind of a cool feature that's included. And then, of course, the sorting order. So do you want to dial it, in the natural order, random order, custom order? Custom order gives you a couple of different fields you can sort on. And then the other thing I wanted to show you too is the dial rules. So this is where you would set up the rules in which you're going to be dialing. So, for example, if you hit an answering machine, do you want to retry it? If so, how many times do you want to retry it? what's your retry interval, and then what's your action. So I'm going to show you scenarios too, which is basically a drag and drop workflow builder that applies to everything except for preview. It's basically like, think of it as an outbound IVR, which I'll show you as well. But a scenario is basically, a workflow, and I'll show you what that looks like. But you can do these for different types of dispositions. So answering machine, busy, etc. This allows you to create different rules for each type of system disposition that might happen. We also offer a diagnostics tab. So if something's not working, we'll actually tell you why, or potentially something to check here with a link. So this one says do not call list is not assigned. So we can actually add that in, and then that will go away under our diagnostics tab. And then, of course, we have the results. So exporting the recordings, all of the data, that can be done on a regular interval. This is separate from reporting. It's a type of reporting, but it's separate from reporting, which I will show you in just a minute. But this is basically to capture the results and export them somewhere, whether that's to an FTP or SFTP. We also could do this in real time via a web service if you'd like. There's multiple ways for us to get data out. We also have different ways to get data in. So, we recognize that, for outbound dialing, we need to have a way to get leads to us, and then we need to have a way to export the results of those leads. And then real quick, we won't spend too much time on this, but I think this is a really important differentiator for us because it's what we live and breathe in terms of our implementations and onboarding. So this is a workflow. You can use it again for everything except for preview. Inbound calls or inbound chats or SMS, that's also possible. Being able to identify a person. We've got a couple of different blocks we can use, but basically to find an agent. So you could actually put in front of this, let's say, you're doing outbound dialing and someone answers. You may decide, all right, instead of writing to an agent, we could give them a menu, an IVR menu. We choose a prompt. If they press 1, they'll be put on the do not call list, or maybe we want to, press 2 to find an agent, something like that. This is how you would set that up. So it's something you could use. You don't have to, of course, but it's definitely a differentiator in terms of outbound where you can actually create a unique workflow around that. So I think it's important to talk about as well. But it's got different things like email and SMS and if statements. But you could essentially use the data that we have that you've sent us to make decisions in this workflow builder. Does that make sense? Do you have any questions on that?
On this, no, but on the campaign, I do.
Okay.
So I just want to make sure I'm understanding it correctly, right? So the way that we do it now, I have, let's say, 2 different campaigns, one called Final Expense and one called MedSup. Within that campaign, I have real-time leads being posted into me. That I have, each provider has their own name. So I think that I seen that you had 2 CSV files underneath your list.
Yes.
Right? So yep. I would be able to put my providers and have them post in that would be able to hit into one of these, into your list of a campaign, and then being able to go ahead and figure out the ratio of which provider I would want to dial more of.
Okay.
Is that right? Like your 2 lists that are in there now, those are CSV files. Obviously, those are uploaded manually. Yeah,
we have an API for it. So there's a list tab here. So we can actually set up, periodic imports, or they can just use the API. So we actually publish all of our documentation on this page here, help.brightpattern.com. So you don't need a login or anything like that, but you come in here, you go to APIs. We've got a list management API. This is the one that you want to look at here. And then this is what you would provide. So, adding records. So this will actually be, it's simply a JSON object. So they send us a JSON object. And then we can upload that. And so, this is basically how, what your providers would do to get this data over to us.
Got it. Okay, and then once it comes in, right, I can then assign that list over to a campaign, and every time a lead comes in, it'll automatically go in there, and I can basically manage my campaign and how I want to dial those lists underneath there with those ratios and things like that?
Correct. That's exactly 100% correct.
All right, cool. Just wanted to make sure I was following you.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and then we offer a wizard to import. Yeah, those were definitely uploaded manually. But yeah, we have a way of doing it automatically. We do it from Salesforce too. So if any of your providers are using Salesforce, we can do that. We can review the contents of the list here, and then the log. So if it fails for some reason or something happens, we can check that too in the log. Any other bells and whistles or features that you're curious about regarding the specific campaigns? I'm going to talk about reporting and customization, but I just want to see if maybe there's something you're doing today that we didn't talk about or that you're curious about.
And then just with the campaign, right? So if I have my team of agents, you were talking about their skill sets before, is that I would add a campaign to their skill set for them to be able to dial?
You don't have to add another campaign for it. It's just that it can be dialed based on specific skills, right? So per state, it doesn't even have to be per state. It could be like specific agents. Like if there's a specific agent assigned to that lead, you could dial just pass those leads just to that one agent.
So the way that we do it now, and you guys can tell me whether or not it's how yours works or how it would work in that feature. We create a campaign, final expense, right? Yep. I then take my 65 agents and I put them into that campaign so that they dial whatever leads or whatever list that I put underneath that campaign, and just, goes through them. So I don't have to one by one.
Yeah, it's slightly different. So we create users, we assign them to teams.
Right.
And assignment is right here. So you say, all right, these teams, and you move agents in and out of the teams. And and teams can be multiple campaigns.
Got it.
And just to illustrate this a little bit further, the supervisor can look at all their teams with all the queues, or they can just look at, like, customer service is going to have fewer queues, and then sales may have fewer queues. But it'll be a breakdown of the different services that are associated with the team. So instead of adding all 65 agents, it's just you add a team and then you add agents in and out of that team. And they're only on one team, but the team could be handling multiple campaigns. So.
Right. Okay, great.
Any other questions on that before reporting?
Nope.
Okay. All right, so you asked about custom reporting. We do have that. I just want to show you a couple different ways that we report. So we have the ability to track the agent's timeline or the agent journey, if you will. So the agent logs in, they go ready, then they get a campaign, or then they get a preview call here, and then we're on a phone call for 2 minutes 25. It tracks the agent journey, essentially. If there's a screen recording available, that will also show up here, but really it's the timeline from start to finish of the agents starting. They log in, what have they been doing throughout the day, what state are they in, how long were they in that state, what's the date timestamp. So it actually tracks everything throughout the day. We do also, if you're transcribing calls, this might be useful, but we can build a word cloud out of that. So, if you wanted to come in here and say, look at the customer or the agent side of conversations, you may decide to build a word cloud out of that. So the bigger words are said more often, and the smaller words are said less often. But it kind of gives you a snapshot of what's being talked about in the contact center. And then we have your standard reporting that you would expect. So it's all based on Jaspersoft BI templates. So basically, you can create and customize templates. And not only can you schedule it to be delivered on regular intervals to email or FTP, but you can also come in here to the customization tool, and you can drag and drop and customize what you want to see versus what you don't. So, FCR, for example, maybe call this FCR instead. So it allows you to create and customize these reports. We also do the same with visualizations. And again, we're going to teach you we'll train you on how to use this. We don't expect you to learn on your own or anything like that. So if we go to this one here, this is one that just has a couple of graphs and charts. But this will have a lot more fields, and then again, you can customize this. We can support custom data. So if you want to write data to us, this one just has everything as part of that report. But we've got a lot of different metrics, and the reporting is customizable and can be automated as well in different file formats too.
So, what do you have as far as list reporting? It's, basically what we tend to look at is how well lists are performing, basically, by conversions or by identifying whatever disposition or call result that we've said that if, this one hits, then great, they're doing well. Or would those be more of a custom build?
Well, for that particular one, what we usually do for onboarding is we say, hey, give us the reports that you're using today, and we'll either find one that's close and modify it, or we can just build you a new one. But the system was designed to be intuitive, so we can just build reports. Basically, assuming we have all that data already, we can build those reports. We may have some that are out of the box, like campaign in time. So this will actually tell us some information about. Let's just see if we can get some. But again, we can customize these for you. It's really not a huge deal. We can do a 30-minute, hourly, daily, and then we can automate the delivery of these reports. So it's not a huge deal for us to customize these. But this could be tracked by a specific service or list. Because we already have all the data, we're able to build the reports.
Right.
So it's not a huge deal for us to be able to do that.
Okay.
We may have one that's out of the box that's close, but like I said, we can help customize that for you. So.
All right. Cool.
And then the interaction records, we talked about this a little bit. The scenario actually tracks everything start to finish. So, what happens when that call comes in, or chat comes in, or if you're connecting outbound, what happened. Transcription. So here's a transcription. I don't think our most recent thing has shown up yet. It's usually about every 15 minutes it's processed. So maybe it is. No, it's not. So, but yeah, basically, if there's a transfer, it will show up in a timeline below. So it'll show up in a timeline below, and it'll cut off, and it'll actually tell you the date timestamp that the call was transferred, and then the full duration of that as well. So if you're looking to report on that, we can do it because we have the data, and again, we can put that into a report to show you on some regular.
Okay, cool.
So yeah, so that's a pretty high level overview of outbound for Bright Pattern. I'm just curious, Robert, of your thoughts, feedback, or questions that you might have.
I don't think I have any further questions. I think I like what I'm seeing. As far as the customization, the ability to get data in and out, looks like a very user-friendly type system.
Thank you.
So yeah, I really don't have any more questions about it. I guess my next one would be, what's the next steps as far